All right, we are live.
Okay. Can I have a look? Does someone want to bring these around? or- Okay. Yeah.
Let's see.
Are these done?
So they're every
Sorry.
two. They're layered. Like so, this is
Oh,
one.
okay.
This is one. Yeah, they're all
Okay.
They have the
layered.
page numbers on them, and there's two-sided. So we sort of just took yours and went down and through.
Yeah, I know, as soon as like.
And then Jennifer, we always also have response to what, we call them the off-the-record things that we talked about that were at the bottom that weren't on the proposal.
Oh, okay.
So we could do those too.
Okay.
Okay. You want to start? The first part was about, let me get to the top here so I can see.
Sure.
We're interested in the 3 years, but we'd like to have the compensation and everything set for the 3 years, not just for 2. Flex time. So people were a little confused on this did you want what you presented to totally replace that article? Was this, was this part of it, or could we have some conversation on what that meant?
Yeah, it was really more just to simplify, and you'll see in what we're gonna do here, kind of our new section and then what was currently there, so.
Okay, so wait for,
I realized I labeled it new, but it really was just to simplify.
okay, that was what, the main, any other questions? Was that, okay? what we were
I think
talking
that
about?
would
Okay.
see what they give back to us after I started.
Okay. Article 10, of course, 10.2.3, step advancement, that was not in this one, so we agreed to that, to take that out. And 10.3.1. The bus riders. This one we didn't agree with the 3 weeks being exempt from. We thought that it should start from day one.
It should start from day one, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Is that what you said?
Yes. Mhm. That the first 3 weeks of school should not be excluded. Any other more on that, or we go on? The severance benefit, that was, I believe, similar to what we had proposed in ours, so we would agree to that then. Personal leave, we want to keep as is. We don't want this. We've bargained in the past and gotten the 3 personal days, and we would just still like them loaded the way they are and used the way they are. Okay. The new section. We'll go to it on this one so I can find better. Apologize, I have to use this. This was continuation of that. It was the part at the end. Use the district after using such leave. If we didn't agree to the first part, then that just seemed that went along with not agreeing. Just seemed to be an extension of the first part. Sick leave with pay. That was where we had done a lot of work on that, but we had a little bit extended into our proposal, so we we're going to hear what you had to say in response to what we proposed last time.
So 14.7 was actually the MOA we signed.
Uh-huh. But I think we had a little bit in there just to see it was something, I believe it was an addition.
Yeah, I looked at ours. You have it in a different section. I believe the language was the same. So
Okay,
I would just want to clarify that.
okay, we'll look at that. in a different section. This one, the next one with the sick leave with pay, additional language, 14.7.5, it was just we did not believe in leaving a note up to 5 days. It would be after, when it exceeds 5 days.
Okay. We're just trying to align with our policy.
So the in excess of is
Yeah, it would be in excess of. When you get to the 5 days, if you're not back, then that would be when we believe that the note would be
On
needed.
day 5, right?
No, on day 6, when you come in on day 6.
Right
You'll be
now,
there on day 6.
On 5 or more is how it reads. Again, policy
Mhm.
is based on following our policy is this, 5 or more.
Okay. The policies can
wanting-
change.
6 days or more, right? That what I'm understanding?
We want up to 5 days not needed, but if you don't have it when you return, I mean, when you come, if you're not there on the 6th day, then yes. That makes sense. Am I correct? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Tired of this, can't see. Okay, we had proposal 19.2 was on probationary period. We do have the MOU, but we had added a little bit to it. I didn't know if, and we can wait and see what your response is to that one and then to the other part of the MOUs. Mm. 20.4 was striking all the language. And we agreed to that.
So can I clarify 14.2.6?
Mhm.
And what I believe I heard, I just want to make sure, the reason you're not interested is, I think Toby said last time, that doesn't follow Molly, and then you just take employees to court, more or less, not those exact words, but. And so is that really the preference of the association, is for that practice to happen versus actually working with employees?
Doesn't, no, it's just, this was in relation to the personal leave, correct?
Right.
So if we don't agree to the top part, why would we agree to you having to get money from people if we don't agree that that money has to be returned in this way?
People are overusing all of their
I
leave
know.
is the problem.
I know this. But I mean, if you don't agree to the top part, agreeing to this just doesn't make sense if that.
But is the practice, if it's just a matter of where it's located, is that the issue?
I mean, of where the leave, which type of leave it is?
Yeah, so
Yes.
they overuse sick leave. They haven't earned sick leave, that's clearly defined in there.
It was, it's something we didn't agree to, but it was in the contract, so we have to honor it for now.
To answer your question, it's not a preference, it's just the way that the law is set up, right? That you would go and collect through that process. It's not that we prefer you to do that. It's just that that's what the law says. Like many other laws, we follow the law, right? That's what we're saying, if that's
Right, but
clear.
there's ways to help within someone to not have to go through that process. I guess I'm just curious based on since you brought it up last time.
Yeah, the concern, as Mary stated, was that it's, we're in a situation where you're saying, hey, we're gonna take a second last check, right? Or we're gonna take it out of these checks. That also, according to Bully, there's different ways to collect money that have a tacit agreement with the union and the employee too. So I don't think one door shuts the door to the other door. I think they both exist depending on the circumstances, like she was pointing out, for the type of leave we're talking about. But just clawing it back all in one lump is not something that Bully says is something that, that they would recommend. I put it that way.
Under the compensation proposal, most of it, we had given our proposal, which we'd like to have response on first, and then we did agree to the 11.1.1 with the insurance and additionals. And then we had the things we had talked about, the conversations, if you want to bring those up now, or do you want to wait, or?
Well, so we're at, I guess what I want to make sure I understand is we had our first round just to sort of move things along, we both exchanged. We're typically right, one does, you have a caucus and you can respond.
Right.
We wanted to get things started so we can move along, so we both did it. And I recognize within that, and both financials are put on the table at the same time, which now we're kind of in this weird, who's gonna go so we can get back to more of that rhythm, so we can have that conversation. This, now you're waiting for us to respond, even though we could say, well, we're waiting for you to respond.
Well, I mean, we did respond, as far as the insurance piece, we would like it to be what was offered. We put in additional sums because I know we have the insurance fund, but that's not gonna last forever, and it's going to be going down. And if we come out of that, and then our employees are, district is putting in hundreds less towards our people than it is for other groups, it's just not gonna work out down the road. So we're trying to stay equal to where we should be. I mean, why should we continue at the same rate when it's already going to be 100 and something below what our counterparts get, for no reason than the fact that we've been good about what we do with our money. And and as far as the salary part, we did put in a counter proposal for the amounts that, you had given. So just to see if there was any change on that, I see that as coming from your side. The other part sort of goes along with how you agree to what our insurance proposal is. So it's not that we're not, I mean, it's something that we could look at if you had any change, and we could look at in caucus, but until we see if there's going to be a change in that, then I don't see how we can send something back.
I think we're at a standstill on that piece, because I would say the same thing as compensation. We also recognize that we put what we put in the budget on the table. You acknowledge that you weren't quite expecting, you appreciated that. And just recognize yours was the starting point.
Correct.
We weren't coming back with a response on the financial because of what we had already put everything on the table for that. So if that's what you guys aren't going to respond, and we're not going to respond, I feel like we're stuck.
I don't see it as that. I see that you offered the same that we already have, especially with the insurance piece. I mean, there was no budge on that.
No, we put two things as an option.
Yeah, but one of them to me, really, all that is taking the amount that you would probably put in towards the monthly, which is probably more beneficial than the way you did, than this reads. I mean, I don't see it as, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not seeing it correctly. I don't know. We did look at some of the other proposals you made, but until we configure that the insurance piece is a separate bargaining thing, but if the district is agreeing that other groups are entitled to get more money every year, but yet let's leave the classified where they are at this current point, which is already going to be next year $100 a month below what certified receive, let's say, or whatever.
So when we put the proposal forward,
Mm-hmm.
you realize that you have like $3 million sitting in this account.
Not now, no, but
Pretty close. And that hasn't changed in the last few years. It's continued to be about $3 million sitting aside. We've been able to help people to have full insurance. And so we felt like it was important to give people salary increases. So we put our money towards those COLAs because we thought that would be a more valuable thing to employees if you already have $3 million setting aside to help people for the next several years with insurance. So if that doesn't align with what you want us to do, that's okay to tell us that. But in our first proposal, that's what we were proposing.
But it wasn't that way. We've looked, and it's already probably going to be at least down $1 million. And we have more people taking insurance, less money going into that fund, cost of insurance and stuff going up, et cetera, et cetera.
So now what I hear you saying is that when we come back, what's much more important to you is less on the COLA side and continue to make.
No, I didn't say that either. Why? Then how are you able to give another group more plus the insurance increases? That just because they didn't choose to have their funds put the way we did, that's not on us.
Last year we gave you in terms of percentage of increase.
Yeah. But it was still what they, no more. It was no more than what they received.
It was about 30% average per employee.
And the insurance piece, no.
No, in your COLA.
30% of ours compared to 30% of what other groups make, is, look at the numbers. I don't know, do you see it as separate? I don't.
So
And I'm really not trying to argue.
No, I'm not arguing, I'm just saying that we're trying to look down the road, 2 or 3 years down the road, when this fund is gonna be considerably smaller, we're not gonna be able to help people the way we are now. And then we're gonna be stuck with this lower amount coming in, from you all. Plus we've looked at what the COLA is for other groups down the road. So I don't think anything that we've asked for is outrageous, and as we said, this is a starting
So
point when we
our
sent our
proposal
initial.
that you sent us is a $6 million for 1 year.
I don't believe that, so.
Well, wait till we show you.
Okay, I'd like
And
to
so
see that.
We're gonna have
Okay.
to find some middle ground.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's in dispute. I think, honestly, I think that we're right at the starting line with this stuff. And at this point, we've given you a proposal, but we have so much language to go through. I think we can all agree that I feel like we'll have better discussions a little further down. Because some of that stuff we're going to weigh in, right? If you're going to put holidays and different things in, we're going to weigh that in because that's only fair. So it's just hard for us to know that at this early stage. So I would say our proposals are what we've given you, and we're going to stick with our last proposal on the wages.
Okay.
And then hopefully as we go down the road, we'll be able to do more of what you're talking about, shifting things around and making it, work better.
And I was just listening for priority.
Yeah. Well, I think getting some of our language done with would be the priority so we can get to that priority, so.
So then
Yeah.
I guess we just-
Come up with the-
so then-
No, I don't know if they want to.
You want us to respond to those questions you had us write down before you
Oh, yeah,
present?
we can, sorry, you
Okay.
did say that.
It's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We decided that we would like to stay at 12 checks for all.
Okay.
And Jennifer talked about 10, going to 10 or 12
Oh,
checks. We want to stay at 12
Okay,
for all employees.
I just couldn't hear you.
That's okay. Not too loud. We'd like to continue front loading sick leave, just work on it. Job descriptions, we have a different proposal we could give you, but we would like to do it within 3-year cycles instead of 4 years. A third. We figure it'd be a good thing as we go down the road. Maybe at JLNC or something, we could talk about which job groups we have some suggestions to look at first. But we'd like to do it over 3-year cycles instead. Bereavement. That was. Okay. We want to keep our scale thing the way it currently is, because I know there might be some changes down the road, but I'd like to keep it where it's at for right now.
What part was that, Mark?
The bereavement dependence, our little chart,
Okay.
our large chart, whatever you want to call it. And then we have talked about incentive to come to work and brainstorm it.
We got a question. The phrasing.
The question was about the phrasing, the blood or affinity. In Yeah.
Phrasing for who's covered.
Can you see that, Mary?
I can't see it. I don't have those yet. I can't read those.
There was a question on the bereavement here for the eligibility piece. I think there's a phrase in here that says, in quotes, any individual related by blood or affinity whose close association with the covered individual is the equivalent to the family relationship. I guess we want to know your thoughts on that.
No, you don't.
Let me guess, you're all orphans, right?
Yeah, that's the new law.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of thoughts on that one.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be tricky. I'm a little concerned about how it may be used. We're gonna just have to work through it.
No pets.
No, to me, it's no pets.
Okay.
We're talking humans.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
I think so. Instead
All right.
of just,
I think we got all your
we
questions.
could talk forever and
All right.
not get anywhere.
Well, we got a break in the action. I apologize. I thought I had enough time with Amity in this. I didn't figure in the car wreck, so your time is valuable. I'm sorry, I was 5 minutes late.
Yeah, I hope it's started.
And that goes for you guys, except for James. What? See? That's okay.
We got 3 left.
Better to have too many than not enough, right?
Thank you.
Oh, look at that. Perfect, thank you.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I need budget. I don't know what the fuck's on.
So I am gonna do my best to respond to the areas that we didn't put language in, but we had proposed, and I know that was something you indicated last time you spoke with. If I missed something, there is a ton that you can say. So, please feel free to ask. It's not that I'm intentionally doing it, truly, it's just there was a lot. Yellow is proposed change, blue highlights are where I believe based on your last proposal and what we had put out there, there's agreement. I recognize we're only doing this in full agreement and not pieces, but I thought that might be easier to follow along.
And recognizing that some of this would probably change things.
Yeah, potentially based on this.
Right.
So with that, first to note that even though there were places that you referred to as just language, there are costs to some things. And so along the way, I will try to point out where there was a cost that we costed out. But within the first year, as Ryan mentioned, it was about a $6 million difference between the two. And just to remind everyone, we are going through a significant budget reduction next year. And that has an impact on everyone. You do realize that, so. With that, Article 1, in recognition, 1.2.2, I think you were just looking at a change in wording. Again, any formatting, I really would prefer just to do at the end when we actually have the agreement rather than spending a lot of time with us together. You all wanted to eliminate 1.6 limited term. That actually is very helpful for us in situations where it's a one-time thing, it's grant funded. It has made a difference in the past as far as laying individuals off or not. But the other piece I thought I heard or picked up on is because we have several areas of different types of employees described, we would be willing to at least say temporary employees. That section could come out. That's not an area we necessarily use versus the limited term gives us more flexibility for those situations. So that's why you see that proposal. You had indicated a new section, personal freedom. I know that came from the teacher's contract. Just because it's in another contract, whether it's here or in another district, doesn't necessarily mean we like it or we're interested in it. And this particular one, especially since social media and the teacher's contract has been in place a long time, it creates lots of issues. And so we actually are looking to add language around this into the contract. Again, it doesn't mean we favor it in the teachers. It's something there that we probably would want to have a conversation about removing as well, because it has more issues than not. We aren't interested in getting into people's personal lives. I do think it's important for employees to recognize that personal lives based on things they do, if it impacts the workplace, it is something that we can have conversations about. But we're not interested in that piece. Article 2. District rights. Under 2.2D, we wanted to strike other. We actually want to leave that in there. We think that there are times when there's possible other reasons.
So on that point, can we give us some examples of what others would be? Because it's just so broad, it could be, other could be literally anything, when really it seems like the focus is about what you're talking about, budgeting and money.
Mm-hmm. And usually it is. I don't have a great example for you right now, but there could be. Again, I mean, we have seen probably in the last 5 years how much things have changed in the world. And so I don't want it to limit, but I think we have a relationship where we have conversations if something comes up and we can have this, explain a particular situation. So, and I would want to maintain that piece versus just trying to get something by. That's not what we're looking for, but I also don't want to limit what other reasons might be.
Yeah, I think that's the rub, because we understand financial, but if it's not financial, I think I mean, obviously you don't have an example, it's hard to grope at what that would be if it's budgetary. Some of, as you know, many of these rights come out of the law, right, for management rights, but other doesn't. So that's why I'm trying to, that's what I'm trying to understand, so that's the question. So. Okay, thank you.
To allow for flexibility if needed. Article 3, so there is some very rigorous steps required in contracting out in the law. So if you prefer not to have it in, we're not interested in having any language in, because that's what we have to follow in contracting out. We are looking to contract out, but there may be, again, some things can change. You may have to look at things and we have to follow a process if there was a need. But we'd be in conversation with you all in regards to that. So otherwise, we would be fine leaving it in, the language in as is, or we can just completely remove it because we have to follow the law. Article 4, association rights, 4.1. And actually, going ahead, I put the blue 4.1. 4.2, we've talked at different points about this document as a reference for employees to look at. We think it is important based on, again, even in the law, that joining the union is voluntary. People have that choice, but being able to actually see that here. So we would just like to leave this sentence in.
I'm sorry, where are we at?
4.2.
4.2, it's not on there.
It's on
Oh, okay,
yours, yeah. I'm
okay.
trying to respond to
Right,
what you
sorry,
had as
yeah.
well.
It's kind of the dealing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was confusing me. Okay, thank you.
4.3, adding the word services, that's fine. For translation and interpretation access, if we're meeting that, when we're meeting with an employee and the association is involved, that's part of what we're doing. But the way this reads is that is something in addition outside for what the association needs, and I would think you all have resources with your union for that. We're not looking at adding language around that. .4 with the bulletin boards, that's in blue. We're okay with that language. The one sentence, if you turn on your original proposal, page 8, the first sentence of that, however, is not a piece that we're interested in adding. But the last I did incorporate into our proposal. 4.5, we want to leave the word may in, and we can remove brief. We're okay with that. Let's see, under your 4.7, so again, I'm back and forth.
Right.
Okay.
I'm with you now.
4.7, you added a new subsection. We're not interested in adding that language in there. 4.8.3, we'd like to keep the current language in place.
So on 4.8.3, I think the intent here was to try to just, depending on when the schedule is, nighttime seems like, it may be a meeting at a different time schedule. If they are okay with their supervisor, would the district have a problem with that, whether it's at nighttime or not? I mean, if they agree to make up the time, such
Well,
as
I think what we're seeing is when individuals are working during the day, typically it's right during student time. And so taking that away makes it more difficult. I think this was originally written to just recognize those in the evening. Might have a harder time, maybe you have some other meetings that we can go ahead and support that. But during the day, again, there's already lots of pieces out there now that's open for the association to meet. We weren't looking at wanting to change.
But somebody who's like a swing shift, maybe, that would maybe
Well,
be.
swing shift, I would put in the nighttime. If
Okay.
that's what your concern is. then
Oh,
maybe-
I'm just clarifying.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. So employees that work until 5 p.m., if our chapter meetings are, let's say, 4 p.m., which is after student time, but before a lot of clerical staff may be done with their work, how would you want that approach? They're not really a nighttime employee, so they may not be covered by this language, but they still have a right to attend their chapter meetings.
They can have a conversation with their supervisor and see what's available.
Thank you, Allison.
You have a new section, page 11, your proposal on meetings. We are not interested in adding all of that language into the contract. Could you tell me what we are right now? Oh, your original proposal, page 11.
Okay.
Thank you.
So under the meetings category, new section?
Yep. We're not looking at adding language.
Even the miscellaneous?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's what happens. It's not like we change that. I don't think it's necessary to write it.
Okay, so on the miscellaneous where it says, all work performed by the bargaining shall remain bargaining, you're saying you already do that, so you don't feel like you need it in the contract?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Article 5, reclassification. Right now, the district has a need based on a new position. We have drafted a proposal, met with the association, presented the information before any position is created. That process has worked, that's within district rights. This is looking at for the association, if they want to create a new position, then based on law, you can come to us and ask to bargain for that. That is not a part of a reclassification, so we weren't looking at adding that component. There is a separate process outside of that. You had a couple just formatting again, I think just within movement, all of that can happen at the end. So within that, we are also looking at, just for clarity, at your 5.4, looking at adding additional steps to the salary schedule. I think that was originally for you tied to creating new position. That all comes within a process. But we're not looking at just having an open-ended salary schedule. We moved away from that years ago. Article 6.
Yeah.
Hey, before we move on, just on 5.4,
Uh-huh.
and you asked a question, we just, the response was incorrect. Thought we're saying one thing, apparently we're saying another, you know, it happens sometimes. This was the additional steps may be awarded based on, that's within the scale, not to create new steps. So
Okay, that's what we
that's
heard last time. So-
that's what we said last time.
Okay.
It was a mistake.
Okay.
We got that wrong, but maybe we take a look at that again with that new information. That's the intent of that.
So say what your intent is again.
The intent is to do what it says, that if they come in and they decide that the committee decides that they should have been on, not on step 3, but on step 4, then they put them on step 4, or that kind of thing. It's not to create a step 6 if there is none, right? If it stops at 5, it stops at 5. We'd be working within that range, not outside of it by adding additional steps outside of the range.
Okay, so are you looking at then the reclassification committee is looking at a different, they're also reevaluating salary placement?
Yes, that's part of what we're talking about too. If there's, it goes with our whole proposal, right? So with the new piece and everything like that.
So what would ask then is based on knowing we aren't looking at adding your language, that if it's something you're still interested in with different wording, that you would bring that back.
So you'll entertain a counter from us on that?
Well, we always entertain.
That's what I would say to you. So, yeah. All right, we'll take another look at that, see what we want to do there.
Article 6.2, I want to make sure you're not missing something, sorry. That all goes with the beginning, so you can get more circles.
Okay.
Article 6, 6.2 was changing lunch to meal, that's fine. it looked like there was a wording correction. Again, you'll see blue on ours. 6.2.2. We believe with the current wording that actually is intended if someone is asked by their supervisor to maybe step away and go, whether it's helping a student, cleaning something up, whatever that is, that they are paid for that time. So I'm not sure we needed to change it, but maybe we misunderstood your proposal on that one. We already had that intent with the current language in place. Go ahead, Marcy.
Okay, thank you. I'm going back one step, 6.2.2, the word full, is this what we're talking about right now?
6.2.2.
I saw that you had one word still in yellow, and I just wanted to double check that that's correct, that you're okay with what we said mostly as 6.2.2.
Yes, I think we're trying to add clarity based on what we thought we heard in your 6.2.2, so we just clarified up above. Right, again, if someone is interrupted during their lunch period, the way, we don't want them to think, well, I have 15 minutes left, they only get paid for, 15. They actually, if they're interrupted in their half hour, they get paid for the full half hour. That's the intent, so we're trying to add full to clarify that.
Okay. So I'm just kind of looking, I'm trying to see, the part, I guess there's a part, the emergency, so you're wanting to keep it as emergency and not emergent and make it say will be paid for the full, we wanted it to say the full meal period and you're just saying the meal period. And is that the same thing? Was the word full was that? I'm confused and I'm gonna admit
I
that.
think we're keeping the original language in the 6.2.2 and then adding full, but then also changing lunch period to meal period or break.
But you have full yellow, so we're not adding the word full.
No, that's an addition to the.
Ours is an addition, because that's not in the original language.
Right,
They're trying to make what we thought your language was.
Yes.
Keeping it simple.
Okay. Okay, sorry about interrupting half.
Oh, no, that's fine. I want to make sure we get it clarified. It's hard, I know, when they're working with two different documents.
So not the word emergent, leaving emergency.
6.3?
6.3. I know you were wanting to change it to rest period. I believe most employees hear the word breaks. That's what supervisors, that's the word that we typically use. So let's just keep it simple and refer to it instead of rest periods as a break. So that would be our response proposal in that. 6.4.3, I'm not looking at striking that. 6.4.4, to me, that's really a formatting comp time is 1.5 times.
Before we go too far along, can you explain to me 6.4.3, how somebody would be paid twice?
I think people sometimes think they can be paid twice.
Right, but it
So
doesn't
this is
happen though, right?
clarifying that.
But it doesn't happen, right?
No, but again, I think if we're trying to make sure people, because we periodically get people thinking they get paid multiple times for the same time.
But they don't.
Correct,
So you're just trying to inform them with this.
correct.
We have some articles like that too, so,
Uh-huh.
thank you.
6.4.6, you had proposed in reverse seniority order. We weren't looking at wanting to add that. Again, I think when it happens, it should be based on kind of the need and the skill set based on individuals. I recognize this probably happens often in facilities. Again, you all have specialty areas. And if it becomes excessive, maybe, for the amount of time, it's probably maybe a conversation with supervisors.
So if somebody was, let's say they all have the same skills,
Mhm.
would we then use seniority?
I think the supervisor has the discretion to look at what the need is. My hope is that, again, the same person isn't always in that particular case, but facilities are not my area.
of expertise, so, I mean,
Do we have somebody from facilities? Yeah, we can.
if we need clarity, we can certainly bring
Okay.
him. If there's a
That'd be
concern
great.
or issue,
Yeah.
we can certainly talk about what that specific thing is.
Yeah, well, and I think it makes sense if you have somebody who has certain licenses or something that they have to, these other people don't have those, but if they all have the same skill and need, it would seem like the fairest way would be to, to utilize seniority, to reward them for their time spending with the district, so that's why we
Well,
suggested
I
that.
think saying fairness, I think is a matter of perception on that, because those are newer, may not feel as comfortable, and they may not feel as fair, so I want to be careful in using that statement.
But we wouldn't disagree that it would be loyalty going to our people that have been here longer, right? So I think that's kind of where we're coming from. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, if there's a bigger issue around that, I mean, we certainly can talk about that and work with the different areas.
Oh, thank you.
6.5. We're not completely opposed to looking at clarification around this language, but we're not bringing any specific right now. What we would like to better understand is, I think there's a variety of times, and it's hard to put language specifically around every incident. Part of that, for example, I understand is a contractor may contact an employee. Part of that is based on the area they work in. The supervisor did not make that contact, does not ask for that to happen. But then the individual goes ahead and does work, does the time, that sort of thing. So if we're looking at needing to clarify, I think we got to get really clear of who makes that decision, and not just because they're either colleague or contractor does it. So I think we need more discussion around that, and it might be worth, again, bringing, I'm assuming a lot of this comes from facilities, bringing facilities in as part of that conversation. So we're not completely opposed, again, just don't have specific language right now, because I think there's more conversation to be had.
Okay, well, that's still helpful, so thank you for sharing that.
6.6, hopefully this goes back and addresses your earlier piece. Is we were truly just looking to keep the flex time language simple. Flex time is not a guarantee. I'm seeing a lot of sort of expectation. People can flex whenever they want and not really have a conversation. We're finding it's becoming an issue. And so we're looking at trying to just be clear for everyone, both supervisors and employees, about this. So I realize, because I think I labeled it as a new section, that may have added confusion last time versus taking what we have and just rewrite it. I'll leave that to the ideas. 6.8. You have put in a new section in regards to, we think we understand what you would like, and that is just notification is important. We want to put timely manner, because one day may not always be possible based on the timing of when meetings happen, the information takes place. But we do want to recognize the importance of it. So we have new language proposed from that. 6.9, uninterrupted time. We're not looking to add language around this. What I would say is I have seen throughout that even when the district gives time, it's not fully utilized the way it's supposed to be. That's not everyone. That happens, unfortunately, more often than not. So until we see kind of change in that practice, then we're not looking for language. And I would say if individuals need some time, they can have a conversation with their supervisor, because their supervisor will work with people. Work location changes, again, that's not the case for everyone, doesn't have a full classroom of stuff, which is why it was put into the teacher's contract. Some positions, some people have more stuff than others. That would be an individual conversation with the supervisor and how we can support and look at making those moves and changes. And workday calendar, same thing, not interested in adding language. We've added days at the beginning for our individuals to be able to complete their trainings, and it still doesn't. At the end of the year, I understood there was a need for wrap-up, and our principals have the discretion, and based on conversation can certainly support that by providing time card time to complete that, but it just needs to be asked versus not everyone I know necessarily. And just to give you a sense, the workday calendars, just so you have the total costs because of what we said, that one itself, if we looked at doing that, it's about $140,000. Okay, Article 7. So 7.1.4. 45 days, calendar days is a lot. Looking to compromise and put 30.
Understood.
The eligibility 7.4 you indicated was based on the limited term. Since we're not proposing that change, I was leaving that in. 7.6.2. Just going to name this. This one's awkward. We are currently going through a budget reduction. Oh, did you have something there?
Sorry,
I know.
that went fast. At least, no, I'm not sure what, the next thing I have on our proposal was 7.4. Okay,
That's what I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't make it fast. I apologize.
no, well, and it's not, like, I'm not familiar with this.
Right, 7.6.2. I understand the proposal. We're going through a lot of cuts. There are going to be staff reductions. I'm meeting with Mary after our first round that will show her some examples of how this may not, by doing that, may not benefit. After that happens, which again, because this is public, I'm trying to be careful in what's being said. If later, after the staffing happens, and Mary has that information, you all want to bring it back, we are open to that particular piece, but I'm not sure that this will benefit employees all of the time. So I'm just naming that, and I've got several scenarios to show how that's going to play out. Okay. Article 8.
What about 16.2, or sorry, 7.6.2 C? We had struck any of the job titles.
Again, I
So
think
that's what she
Is
whole
it still the same,
section,
the whole
we
section?
want to
Okay.
wait. Again, we want to come back after the information. I'm open. I just want you to have enough information to make that decision.
Okay. Thank you.
Article 8, personnel records. If we want to change it. Personnel files, the personnel records, but we're not interested in adding in human resources. My little comment on there is I don't think we can consistent personnel record, personnel file if we want some consistency for formatting. That's all that is about. Job descriptions. There is, I understand the need right now. If any individual wants a copy of the job description, we can certainly provide it. In the interim, we are looking at doing some cleanup and getting them all in one place electronically. We could look at putting them in a Google shared drive so all employees would have access. But it's going to take some time because there's other things that are taking priority right now in workload. But not necessarily looking at putting language in the contract about that. Same with onboarding. That can change based on different things that come up, how it's done. We believe onboarding is important. I appreciate Marcy's comment earlier about trying to recognize the importance of it, but we're not looking at putting specific language to identify our work on how we do that in here. Article 9. Make sure vacancies, job postings, promotions. 9.2.3, they're always open at least 5 working days. It's fine to strike out the word normally. 9.2.4, we have this discussion many times. We're interested in the 2. Again, happy to have conversations with anyone who wants to talk about their application. Ad is open. We let individuals know even after interviews. They want to reach out for feedback. That rarely happens. Also, not looking at 9.2.6. I think we send it out one time. People need to have some level of responsibility to be able to look for the information and have it rather than us having to keep
feeding it to them. So we're not looking at adding a second time to send out that reminder. The new subsections as far as that, again, individuals who are qualified can apply. We encourage that. They're looking for, I heard, for new growth opportunities. But we're not looking at putting languages that's going to slow down a process. That's actually going to make it harder for us to be able to hire the best candidates for positions. Again, I will offer, and I would even be willing to throw out, if you think it is important for your members and they take us up on it, that we can offer sessions throughout the year of how to apply for positions. I'm happy to facilitate those. We're happy to do it with Mary, for example. So individuals, if it's like, I don't know how or what I'm doing wrong, I want to give people that opportunity. But they have to take some level of responsibility. And I can tell you from things I have seen, people don't put in the effort in their applications to update them or provide the information necessary. So there has to be, again, individuals have to take some of that responsibility. 9.3.2. So we weren't interested in the specific language, but I wanted you to understand part of that's future relevant experience. Sometimes individuals are applying for different positions and their level of experience in that particular area is very different. If there was a different meaning behind this, we're happy to discuss that. But we didn't think it should be an automatic based on just because you've been with the district for however many years. It's actually based on what you're doing into that position as well. Years of experience do count for many things, but not just a straight salary step placement. All right, Article 10. I'm going to take a break and start trying to do this.
Right when we get to the,
Yeah.
the pay now.
So this is information, oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, no, you're fine. Take your time. It's all second from scratch. So this is information that those of you who've been on the team before have seen, but those that are new, this is maybe some new information for you. And what we do is we take a look at a comparator group, and we look at this comparator group year over year. So the names on it haven't changed. Some of them are because they're close to us. Some of them are because they're similar in size. And some of them are because they are similar in socioeconomics. So those are sort of the, and we look at that in terms of student achievement in a lot of different measures. And then what we do is we look at different positions that are similar because districts have a lot of positions that have different names or different titles. And so we look at where our educational assistants, our life skills educational assistants, and our custodians fall in terms of the average as we look at these other districts. And so one of the things that the school board has asked us to do as we come forward with proposals in the past has been to be a little bit above average, recognizing things like cost of living and some of those factors. And so as you look at this chart, the way you would look at it again is that if you start looking at educational assistants, at the top is our starting wage and our max wage. So first step and final step. And then the percentage above, or in the case of the brand new custodian below, the blue or the red. And again, that's the average for all of these districts across the group, and how we look at, are we staying ahead? So again, just to sort of summarize it, between gaps like Oswego, Lebanon, Lincoln County, McMinnville, Oregon City, Redmond, Westland, Wilsonville, and Sherwood, for a starting EA, we're about 10% above, and for a final salary EA, we're about 11% above. For life skills EAs, we start out about 14% above and end up about 15% above that average group. And then the final group is the custodians, and that's as we talk about groups that we need to spend time focused on And that kind of that category, the starting wage of our custodians is one that we're concerned about. It's 2.6% below at starting and 3.7% above at the max range. So again, that is one of the things that we spend time looking at as we're trying to put our proposals together.
Thank you.
And that's the
Okay, so we've already sort of mentioned that because
I just wanted to ask, but it says Greater Albany has asked if it says the agreement has been reached and information available, so.
for the 24-25.
Right, but so it says the contract end date 6/30/22. Are those numbers represented for Albany, the new contract? Or the-
They're the 23-24 numbers.
they posted just their salary schedule, but they haven't posted like the full contract, and I know it goes multi-year, so I don't, it's just, I think they're still in the drafts.
Just wanted to clarify.
I'm glad you asked it because I asked one before I presented it and then I forgot to.
Okay, so Article 10 compensation. Salary schedule, we've already touched on this, we were bringing back the training we had. I did hear from you that year 3 is important to have something versus a financial opener, so I appreciate you clarifying that for us.
That's right, Mary? Yeah. A quorum for that third year.
Yes, please.
No, close, a big close.
Again, just to give you an idea with cost for the year 1, the difference is 1.08 million from your 10% and our 5%. Year 2, based on what we have presented, and yours is 1.14. Okay, 10.1.2. So there's a reference to a regular salary schedule, and I don't know if this goes back to maybe the misunderstanding before, but we weren't looking at adding steps to the salary schedule. I thought that's what we heard, why there was a statement regular, but we weren't looking at changing the current structure, so.
What's the longevity?
Oh, yeah, sorry, there's two issues that are very similar. The one was the reclass stuff, where we weren't looking to add steps. This was looking to add steps. Okay, sorry.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, 10.14.4 A and B. So as part of our application process, there is questions about an individual's language proficiency. And so that information should already be provided on the front end. We're not looking at, we have to take one additional step, but actually should be information presented within the application. That's where we go ahead and make that determination, and then if testing is needed, go ahead and set that up. 10.1.6. So based on your proposal with the adjustments in looking at step placement based on years of experience, we support that. So you'll see that in blue. 10.2. That was based on limited terms, so we didn't touch that since we're going to be limited term in. I believe 10.2.3, that probably should be a blue. If we're in agreement to start that since it's old contract language. 10.3. Our proposal instead is to actually indicate that newly hired employees 1 month from their date of hire would be able to submit the incentive application. And the reason for that is individuals may not provide transcripts from the beginning of their application if their position doesn't require a specific level. So we will let individuals know about the education incentive, but it's then the individual has a level of responsibility to provide that. So we're sort of counter-proposing what you put in.
So let me ask you a question on that.
Yep.
What if I do it 2 months later?
Well, then you have to wait till next year.
And next, so that's what you're saying per year. Okay, gotcha.
The proposal you had about doing it every 2 years cost about $96,000. The 10.4, working out of classification, we're interested in keeping the 5 days. If someone is truly in that position, we do go back to that first day. I think if you, by saying 1 day, there are different times we all probably pick up something different to help out in different ways. And so my worry is that's what that would cover, and that's not the intent. And so again, we're being intentional about what this is for. 10.4.3, you wanted to change it from 6 to 3. We'd like to keep it at 6. 10.5. We were wanting to leave the current language as we have it. However, you will see in our Article 7. Oh, I think I skipped over something. You want to flip up to Article 7 where it says new section before 7.9 recall. This is our document. Oh, you're good.
The page before, go back one more page.
Okay. I think there were a couple things that we're trying to take care of, and in this case, the reduction is based on the reduction in force. So we were adding language about how someone is placed, and that I think is to provide clarification. That's what that is for. All right. 10.7. So that costs about $490,000 in year 1. That's your new subsection. Again, we were looking at changing the salary schedule, so not putting the word regular in there. 10.2.2. 10.10.2. Not interested in adding language, but what we are willing to do, because I understand the importance, is to do an MOU. As part of the athletic salary schedule comes out of CEA's contract, we would have the MOU. We do currently pay it. We would have it in there, and then the next time we update that salary schedule, it would just be sort of rolled into that. So,
Can you go over that one more time? Sorry.
So first, we do pay that stipend. I believe that the request here was so it was documented. So rather than put it here, because again, our salary schedule is in the CEA bargaining agreement, we would do an MOU for this specific sport. And then when we update that salary schedule, we would incorporate that. I think we're agreeing just in a different method of how it's done.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Let's see. A, we're not interested in the language. It's not a practice we do in this district. I understand it's where others may. It is a great area when we're talking about stipends for classified, and we are trying to work our practice so certified and licensed are receiving stipends in the same manner from that standpoint. But specific language here is not something we do. Okay. 10.17. Your 10.17 and our 10.18.
That's a new one.
The bus rider piece, that we came back on. This is just from our original, so we will need to come back to that. Okay, Article 11. 11. The cost for the insurance increase you all have proposed is about $850,000 in year 1. So from your proposal, the insurance monthly increase to $1,475.
That costs about $850,000. Difference, sorry. 11.2.2, this has potential implications on our work. We're not sure that that language actually needs to happen. And I think we shared a little bit last time about with us going to OLAB, actually for all groups, and that we can offer all plans, that changes really the group of this work, or the work of this group. But not looking at adding language to that.
Sorry, what was the,
11.2.2. Your document. There was a request. 11.2.3, you were suggesting adding or other savings without specifics. There's a ton of logistics around that. And so we weren't necessarily looking at adding language for that particular piece. 11.3.1. We kind of started having this conversation. Your insurance reserve pool is quite healthy. You've been able to do great things for employees as far as being able to help them cover the insurance pool, and that has not decreased much at all. With that, again, what our proposal was last time is looking at two things. Either looking at increasing the insurance contribution, or if we wanted to go, and this would not be on an individual basis, it would be one or the other, but wanted to just recognize another thing we were looking at is incentivizing people coming to work. And so that's where that amount, either using it for the insurance contribution or using it to pay a stipend at the end of the year, based on that. It sounded like you were more interested in the insurance contribution. So we'll make note of that for next time versus that incentive. I don't know if that's changed, but that's what I thought I heard at the beginning. Then going down to 11.4. So you are interested in changing the prorate difference. That cost about $1.2 million. Again, your reserve pool is quite healthy. We'd encourage you to continue looking at supporting, but if you're wanting a change in that way, that can be done differently every year. And I know that through the committee and through your association, you all are making decisions based on that. That will be coming up soon again, as we look at that particular piece. So that moves us to Article 12, holidays. So we are not looking at offering all holidays to all staff because everyone's on different work calendars. We're looking at moving it to the same we currently have in place. Just so you know, the cost for your proposal on that was about $535,000 to give everyone all holidays. Vacation, Article 13. We spent a lot of time last time in making adjustments to this and aligning it with our non-rep group. So we were wanting to keep that in place. And then 13.3.5, you have proposed changing it from 5 days to 3 days. We think 5 is appropriate. And if it is an emergency, that is actually stated in there as well. If it's an emergency, an individual. Article 14, bereavement. Because the laws are changing, it seems like pretty rapidly in the last, even just the last year, referencing instead of specifically saying OFLA, because that's even changing, that's supposed to be coming soon, just referencing and indicating in accordance with appropriate Oregon leave laws. 14.2.1. Again, we would like to keep the same 5 days because it does provide the option if it's an emergency. We're willing to strike 14.2.2, so that's why you see that in blue. 14.2.3,
14.2.6, you've already responded, I just incorporated everything in there, so I heard you were not interested in that. 14.3 through 14.4 and all of the things underneath. You said you wanted to have discussion become specific. We'd like to understand what the issue is. We spent a lot of time last time on this language as well. We don't understand necessarily what the concerns were with this current language.
You're talking about the emergency closure, correct?
School cancellation, district closure.
Yeah. Most districts have been approaching me and just adding in that if it's closed for some reason, they'll be paid, and if they're let's 12 months, they'll have to make up those days without pay. So it's just been kind of a thing that's been going from chapter to chapter to chapter. So we're just keeping you current. We do think it's also fair. That's what we proposed last time, if I remember right, too. But since then, there's been actually a lot of development on this from various schools. Many of the schools that you put on your comparison list too, like Oregon City, do this now. It's just they understand if you have to make up the time. If you're 10, 11 months old, you have to make up that time. But you don't suffer a hole in your paycheck here. So, and the other thing that I think why districts have been bringing this too is because it can create a nightmare for pay. If somebody gets unpaid days, you've already equalized out the pay and everything, and you gotta. So I think that might be some emphasis on their part to do that because they do make up the time. I mean, unless you guys decide not to, of course, right? But assuming you do, you 2 days for snow over here, you come back, you work 2 days over here at the end of the day, end of the year. Those are paid here, they're not paid here because you already got paid, essentially get advance paid. So that was the intent. We're just trying to figure out some language that works for you guys. The best contract language I think I've seen this, it's the most succinct would be North San Am if you want to research that, or I can send it to you if you want. They literally cut down 3 paragraphs. I was pretty shocked, but it covers all those things. So I think that's the gist of it. And we can certainly provide you with some other groups if that's helpful. Just let me know. I'd be happy to send them to you. And then maybe you can have a discussion with those counterparts of yours in the other districts to see how it's working for them.
Well, Hobie, I know you often mention other districts. I would let you know that I also know where their pain points are with many pieces in the contract. And
Sure.
so not always interested just because they have it, but it means we think it's good language.
Sure. Well, I would assume they would give you that information so you could bring that here, right? I mean, that would be.
Yeah, and I do have that. But last time we spent a lot of time, we actually increased the number of closure days. And so I'm not sure I'm hearing, because I think the intent was you struck it out with a want to have conversation about different language, right? But what I'm hearing you say is you more or less want just it open-ended.
I think the discussion point, you're asking what, this is kind of what we feel is fair now, but we realize it takes 2 to tango, right? So we're trying to have a discussion with you to see where that line is. I'm just giving you some history of what I'm dealing with elsewhere, so you have some context of why it's coming. So, but if you have a proposal that you think essentially meets that goal, it'd be great. I mean, the idea is you're given the money from the state for that 182 days that person's going to work, and so if 2 days are snow days, why would there be unpaid days for that person? Why would they just make them up, right? I mean, that's really the kind of, there's a savings for the district here versus, both sides making out. So if you have a proposal that does a little bit better of both of us making out, so it's a little more fair, we would entertain that.
Well, I'm not sure we have a proposal. The last time we spent a lot of time on this, and our proposal was increasing the number of days. And that
From 1 to 3, yeah.
That seemed to have worked. So that's what I'm curious, has there been a different issue than that? Because I know the most recent was the ice storm, right? And I don't know if there was something from that caused like the need to redo language, or if it truly is just kind of wanting it more open-ended.
I think that was a mess too, because there was a holiday in there, which kind of messed some things up. But it's also the fact of, if it's a snow day, others are told not to come in at all. We're told to come in as soon as we can. Sometimes safety is overlooked when the county's telling staff the roads, whatever, but we're told, try to get there or you're not going to get paid. I just think it's wrong. It's safety first. And it really causes a lot of angst amongst employees, which is something you're concerned about, is how they feel about. I don't know how, maybe there are ways to deal with it. The 3 days, obviously, this year was enough, thank goodness. And even for those of us who had, or were 260s. But just that feeling of when you have to listen on the phone and they say, you know that, well, to be blunt, teachers never aren't coming in and don't have to come in, but yeah, we're supposed to put our safety, our put family safety and come into work. Some of us they're having small children, et cetera, who can't come to school, but mom needs to come and try to get to work. I just think it's something that we just need to talk about and try to figure out because it's just not right.
And the other piece to that is that if it wasn't for the holiday on that Monday, because it started before that during the holiday, you wouldn't have had enough days this year, just in that example. So it feels like it's a lot less stress for our folks if they know, hey, look, okay, I'm going to probably have to make up some of these days over here when the district reschedules. I think they accept that as adults, they understand, but it doesn't create that stress of not having either coming to work risking their safety or not having enough, money to pay the bills, right? So depending how long it goes. So I think that's what we're trying to balance out. So if you, like I said, if you don't have proposals, cool. If you really want proposals, we can put one out there. I just thought we'd have some dialogue and maybe just get a sense of where we're coming from both sides, and maybe we could have a little more productive proposal that might be a little more of interest to you, I should say.
Does anyone else have any other concerns or?
I would like, and
Tim?
Tim, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think there was also some discussion about the notifications, especially in the district closure day, for the other staff that actually arrived to the buildings not being present. And they were driving when they received that notification, so I was like, oh, we don't close, messages turn around home.
Well, so I'm out driving at 5:30, trying to make the decision, as quickly as I can, so I'm sorry that happens. But I have to make a decision by 5:30 based on what the conditions are gonna be like at 7:30. And when that changes, and it usually does, I get blown up. And on the other side of it, when I go the other way, and it doesn't work, I get blown up. So I'm not really interested in going to 4:30 decisions on that. I'm happy to have the conversation, but that's not, that's a sort of a non-starter for me.
To throw out another couple pieces around communications, I'm right again at 5:30, we make it for 7:30. We do have classified staff who go to work before 5:30, so they get caught in that, just as a recognizing a piece.
So one of the things I'm wondering about, if it's more about some positions, and if we're having that kind of conversation, because I totally understand. The kitchen staff is a group that we have to think about. The facilities group is another group we have to think about, and we have to think about how we do that in such a way that we still make sure that we don't have any pipes breaking, because we have that, right? At multiple sites. So I'm open to that part, but what I can't fathom is how I can make a decision earlier. I guess that's where I'm stuck.
The other part of the communication I would say is that, the message, the contract for what it says for classified is different than what it says for certified. The message that goes out for the district, the staff, quotes the certified contract, but our classified get your rates. And if you have, we know pretty well who's certified, who's classified. You might be surprised sometimes the number of people who don't know. I'll tell you, based on a t-shirt order form, a whole bunch of teachers were ordering LSU t-shirts thinking they were in our union. So they talk to each other. So we deal with confusion, like the day after, where people are like, no, I talked to Nancy and she said that the contract says I don't have to come in. Well, Nancy, certified, you're not. So it's in a lot of ways in our best interest. Everything Hobie was talking about, that is true on one side, but personally for what we've been seeing and hearing from our staff is confusion, both from the fact that contracts don't have the same expectations on this at a time where in an emergent situation like that, people see themselves as staff in different categories, as well as the communication coming from the district compounds that by sending out one, because you want to be short, sweet, and get it out, but you're sending out one message to everybody, and they're taking that at face value and then they're dealing with it afterwards. So that has a lot to do with why we really want to look at what we can do to align state life on behalf of the employees so they're not having those confusions, and that the messages they're getting are accurate for them.
I have appreciated having the 3-day window. It has made decisions easier for me to make driving around, knowing that it's not as much an issue around compensation now as it used to be. So I do feel like the languages have been an improvement in trying to make that decision.
mean, a couple other things is, I think individuals also have to make choices. If they wake up and it's not safe for them, they need to make that call. We're not forcing people to get in their car and drive. I recognize there is a feeling, maybe, but each person makes that choice when they're not feeling well. Right? It's happening already. The other thing is I do understand the confusion with the message that goes out. And one of the things that does not feel good is because teachers who are salaried work other hours outside that they're not paid for. So for us to put a message that says, teachers do this and classified do this feels also very yucky. And we've gone round and round in our own side. So I do recognize that. We will continue to look at that and see if we can do something better. The other thing is, part of the reason some people are working earlier is we've given some flexibility to do 4:10. I mean, we could say because of this, maybe we need to work windows this time to go back to 8:5. For 5/8, right? I'm sure that may not be a popular thing for some. But I mean, that's another piece, right?
I think most of what we're talking about is around food services and where we start for cooking.
I can guarantee we're not gonna find one answer that's going to fill everyone's, because we have a variety of what's going on. I would be interested if you wanted to come back with something specific. The 3 days, I think, did make a difference. We spent a lot of time last time. I don't think we're not looking at open-ended. I mean, I will say that. But if there's some things we can do to navigate and take care of some of these others, I think let's see what you might want to bring where those sort of pain points are.
Yeah, and it's good to have this discussion. I think we're narrowing on two pieces, right? The piece about the communication, it sounds like we need to have maybe some better guardrails with that. And then the other piece about, well, I mean, it's not a cost to the district if they make up the days, but just how many days we're talking about is kind of the two issues. Although I would point out that, if you want to pay us like you do the teachers, we could probably work something out for us,
There's some holy laws.
Oh, come on. We don't need to follow the law.
I know, right?
So we'll bring you back something on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Tying in all the district closure days and everything, maybe looking at, it might mostly apply to facilities, but more clearly defining who's on. Right now, it's more of an assumption.
Okay. Very loosey-goosey. This last time, all the custodians were called in, which has never happened before.
Okay.
And it was very confusing, and people were feeling like that was a little unfair.
Okay, that's good to know.
And
Thank you.
I want to add this piece, because I heard it from 3 different custodial staff in the district. They felt a lot of pressure. And again, yes, people, we can say people need to stand firm or, do what's best. But we also know a lot of people, peer pressure has a term because people came to it. I mean, the pressure where they're saying, like, I don't think I can make it safely, and we really, really need you, and so that pressure, almost, if you have that accommodating work first, I want to do different things, personality, it pushes you into maybe taking unsafe action, you wouldn't have took if your answer had been accepted that you didn't say.
The other thing, like going along that line that we were trying to figure out the whole time was when it was going to go above freezing, because I was also worried that if we didn't have things cleared out, then we had a day that looked like this, and everything would be frozen, and we were like, well, why can't we be in school? Well, the only reason we can't be in school is because we don't have, clean walking paths, and so there's like so many choose your own adventures as you work through this whole thing. Every time it's different. Like I thanks for that.
Okay. 14.6, professional leave. We were proposing to strike out, we believe it actually provides some clarity, so we would like to leave the current language in place. 14.7. So we have an MOA. This is based on Paid Leave Oregon, which I don't think it was called Paid Leave Oregon when we first did the MOA, but that particular piece I think fits in with 14.7 rather than a separate section. We are not looking at adding additional days. We actually, the problem is people are exceeding and have gotten, in some cases, and not all, habits where they're coming in it, going out much longer. And by adding more, my worry is that continues to grow that bad habit. And so we're not necessarily looking at adding more 60 days. 14.7.2, you wanted to strike. This goes back a little bit to the last conversation we had in the beginning about we can certainly take individuals if to court. My preferences were actually working with employees and being clear up front. So I don't know if that discussion helped early on or not, but we would like to leave 14.7.2 in. 14.7.5, we want to leave current language. Fourteen point 7.7, looking at individuals need to use their paid leave before unpaid, and our particular piece was based on policy. Did you skip?
She said she doesn't want to change.
Okay, sorry. Again, looking at too many documents here. So it was to just update it in accordance with Oregon leave laws instead of specifying both of them, like, again, changes continue to be coming, so.
Well, I'm sure they're done now.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
When you did 14.7.5, we had the striking language and then a proposed of a new subsection. Was there no interest in both parts?
Correct. If someone has to, we do that. The main part of it is if that happens, there's a payment required, and we're specifically asking for that, and there is that cost, we were open to the discussion.
Could you clarify what you mean by that?
Well, you have the subsection, they let us know that there's going to be a cost, and we just make some decisions at that. Typically, nowadays, there's stuff that goes in individuals' charts that simply said they were seeing. Again, we're looking for if someone is now, we need to know if they can come back and fully work. Sometimes there's restrictions, and often that's the case when we don't have that information. So that's why we're asking. There's a lot of things I don't want to know about people. So it's personal reasons.
So, sorry, just to clarify, your 14.7.5,
That's, you responded to that last time. So,
okay. And then.
I mean, I just
okay.
incorporated everything we had in
Gotcha.
the first stage, so you responded to some of this.
All right, okay, understand, thank you.
That's the third contract.
Right,
All right, what number are we on? 14.7.6. 6? Oh, those are just formatting, I think.
Yep.
And then we did the applicable laws. Yeah. 14.7.7, current language we think is fine. 14.7.8 is a new one you had put in. We're not interested in putting in that language, but supervisors have that discretion already. And that's a conversation that the employee is having based on something that's happening at work. So that conversation, if an individual needs, they have the conversation with their administrator. You have a funny look on your face, Marcy. I'm not sure if that's confusion of what I said.
I would like to ask a clarification on the thing. So you're saying that right now, an administrator has the authority to let somebody go home that day without them putting it in a sick leave if they get hurt?
And I know that has happened.
I just putting it out there.
I would say the conversation needs to happen and not someone just walks off, right? There's different things. 14.7.9. That cash payout is about $670,000.
for the tenure?
And that's not including tier one, assuming that they would want to take their sick leave and push that to hers.
Mm-hmm. And how about the other piece of it, the A? That was B, the 10 years, right? So what about A?
So we're right now, we are looking at for more of an immediate of people not using all of their, the way you presented this was more of a longer term. And
It would
encouraging
take
people
4
to build
years
up,
if
right?
you were empty or new.
Right.
But we'd also be willing to look at that number if you want it more immediate too. We'd have to have some idea what that would look like, right? But we'd be willing to look at that because that's what that's intended to do, is address that issue directly. And we put in a number of places because we're trying to do something, right? Without breaking the bank. So would it be possible if you did show us a version that you think it would be better, more immediate, that would work better?
Well, we did in our first proposal, it's
Right.
that stipend.
But we're not super interested in that. So I'm just wondering on this piece.
Well, I know, but that's what our proposal is.
So we should come back with a dollar amount, as we're saying. Gotcha, I heard you.
So
All right.
that isn't immediate, that is saying, hey, you have some leave at the end, look, you get this bonus, you can go ahead and put it in some retirement,
Mhm.
account if you want, so. This was more of the idea was, I think, to allow people to build up. We need to figure out how to get people to build up first.
Well, and that was the idea, is that they would have to use their leave for what's intended, right? And then with this plan here under A, they would be able to put it to 403B, right? So that give them incentive to build that up. But if they got truly sick, under like the $600 that would be gone, they could tap that without the big penalty for a serious medical condition and still use it for its original purpose. So that's kind of how we came up with that, just for the train of thought there. But if 40 days is too, 10 days is more appropriate, we'd be willing to play with that. So I guess we'll try to show you something different on that first one, and try to figure out what we can do with that.
I think I just want to be upfront about is there's limited dollars. And so all of these had additional costs. Ours is sort of a choice because we only have limited. So we're trying to
Right.
figure out where it best meets.
Well, I think that's why we're used to the 40 days that their FTE come in, because that's usually takes you 4 years to get there if you don't have it saved already, right? So there's a savings in there too. You don't pay for the sub and the sick day, right? That's the idea. So, but I mean, it's just one idea of how to do it. So we can massage it a little and send it back to you and see if but we're not interested in B at all, huh?
Not right now.
No. All right. Thank you.
All right. 14.8. We spent a lot of time on this last time as well. We felt like we got it to a place that worked for all groups. And so we're not necessarily looking at making a change. What I'm curious about is where there has been an issue, since we did spend a ton of time reworking it. We're not aware that there has been, but that would be helpful if that's why new language was brought to.
You're talking about 14.8.2, make sure I'm.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think the intent here, and I'm pretty sure this is right, is that we have kind of two different pieces going on here, right? Where we have 2 hours of work balance and we have half a day, right? So we're trying to just make it the same for everybody, I believe, is what we're doing here. This is trying to make it into, hey, no matter where you work, if you're gone half a day, this is it, right? Versus half a day for you and 2 hours for you. And it just didn't make sense, because if you're hiring a sub, you're not going to hire them for all but the last 2 hours of the day, because you're not going to know you don't need them for the last 2 hours of the day, right? So that's why I think we just try to make one process instead of having two in here, depending on shift. That's all this was intending to do.
Right, but work's not being done then. And so I think, yes, individuals on jury duty are getting paid.
Yeah.
It's not being impacted by their pay, but there's work still to be done. So if they still have part of their workday, why couldn't they come back and work?
I guess that's that question about the other process, if it's half your day versus 2 hours.
I think it's the evening where we ended up doing language this evening because of kind of some timing based on when they're called in and then they have to go. So again, we haven't heard that there's been an issue.
So you think there would be 2 hours, you would, Isaac's gone, you hire a sub, he finds out, oh, hey, I've got 2 hours and 15 minutes, shows up at work. You think there'd be 2 hours of work with them with the sub there too?
Yeah, we always have supervision needs for kids, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank
I
you
mean,
for that
I would ask
clarification.
anyone, you walk away and your day is completely completed everything and you get to start fresh and nothing's waiting for you the next day?
So you're saying we need to bargain
Wow, I
more.
like that job.
So what I heard was you want to bargain more hours in the day for these folks. Spend their day. Well, all right, no, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right, 13.11, family illness leave, individuals can use, we're again not looking to add more leave time. Paid leave ordering has also provided significant benefit for individuals as well. 14.12 and 14.13, also new leave looking at putting in, not looking at adding language. I do recognize that 14.13, there is law, we have to follow the law anyway, if that happens. So that's what we would be doing, but not looking at specific language.
You said that was 1412?
And 14.12.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
14.12, 14.13. You added 3 new leaves.
Is that it? All right. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Article 15. 15.5.2. We have only had 1, maybe 2 individuals donate to the sick leave event. And so we're not seeing that this is a huge need or issue, and find if lots are wanting to at some point, then we can certainly have a different conversation, but right now this hasn't come up. 15.5.3. We're fine with individuals who want to and aren't using their leave for, let's say, part of retirement or something else, and want to go ahead and donate that. Is fine. We do that. I think there was one article, there was nothing.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. Thank goodness. Article 17. You recommended or proposed meeting monthly. We're counter proposing quarterly. It's not always needed. Mary and I meet on a regular basis. Things come up. We are working through issues fairly regular, I think quarterly. If there's a need for seeing things, for example, if we go to this job review, we certainly can schedule things.
That's why the word minimum in there, so you could flex it. Okay.
Article 18. So the uniform stipends we thought was an interesting idea. Due to current budget situation, we're not looking at adding the language, but we would suggest, because it actually has, I think, some good components to it, is bring it back next time we work it. Probationary period, Article 19. So some of the language we proposed was based on the memorandum of agreement we have in place. You also were proposing changing from 9 months to 3 months. We're not interested in making that change, but what I also say is there's many places you want to align with teachers' contracts. Teachers are on probation for 3 years. Don't think that's what you're interested in either. So we think 9 months gives individuals a chance to show that they're able to do the work, or for us to give them some additional support if needed before any decisions are made. We think 3 months is too short, and actually that puts pressure where if one little thing happens, we would move through that process, and that doesn't feel good to individuals. All right. Article 20. You have some new language you proposed, 20A and B. Again, teachers have very specific laws around evaluation.
19.2, I saw you do 19, but not 19.2.
MOU?
So that's all based on our MOA.
Yeah.
So I just, yeah. Sorry. The evaluation piece, there are some specifics in the law for teachers of how and what we have to do for evaluation. Because of what we have to do for them, based on their license, their contract, and everything else is different. And so I recognize the want and need to try and align as much as possible. And I think there's places we're trying to do that, but with evaluations, because of, again, that probationary period being 3 years, we're not looking at the same language in regards to that. We want to, though, from an evaluation standpoint, is work with individuals to be able to, if there's areas that they want to grow in, that we have those conversations. If there's areas identified they need to grow in, we have those conversations and support them. But the specific language similar to teachers, that is because of the law. So we didn't want to put that in place. Some of this also is based on MOA, so I think we got that piece in alignment. The other piece, though, that is new that you added was complaint procedures, and that is the new section you have in your document on page 57. There were some pieces you took from the teacher's contract, not everything. So if you would like to have the same for process, I copied everything from the teachers and put that in. I think the benefit of that is that for a complaint procedure, our supervisors and administrators know that it's the same for both employee groups, but I think it's important that those are aligned. Did the same thing for the bias incident response, which is also a new piece that you added. So that language again comes directly from the teachers and just change license. Okay. Article 21. There's language in law. We're not interested necessarily in taking out the language. Do we think it's helpful as, again, you kind of reference what people should know and not know about things, is really leaving the current language in place. Article 22. Again, there's a request to change days. I think if we, right now we're proposing leaving the current language in place. If there is a need to change, and that's for alignment, for example, with teachers' contracts, that looks different because we break it down based on each stage, we certainly can have that conversation. But I also think it's important that you start a process with in a timely manner so conversations can be had. It's not something that happens much later. Article 23. So a lot of the language you had proposed came from the teacher's contract. I spent a lot of time on this as well and looked at what you were wanting and hoping. I think there's a lot of similarities. I don't know if you really want me to read through the whole thing.
No, we'll have to look at it together.
Yeah, but what I did was we looked at pieces from the teacher's contract. We incorporated it in here and looked at how it also meets within what each of the jobs that are different with our licensed staff and our classified staff. And so I'm hoping that we are, if not kind of in alignment, very close in this particular area. I did make note, 23.1.3 is going through the flow. Again, this is more formatting, but that's why you see that, and we may want to move that around. And then new section also with the behavior committee. I do want to just point out, so you don't wonder why. The committee already, between CEA and the district, is very large. Makes it very hard to find times for all of those people to meet. We recognize the importance that classified staff play in this as well. We certainly want to incorporate that in. But I think adding 6 more people on top will make it even harder. So we're thinking 3 to represent all levels. Because that's where this work is coming from as far as working with the kiddos in the schools. But again, do want to recognize the importance of being a part of that. 23.2, we felt like the current language, because again, we spent a lot of time before on that, met the need. And 24, I think 24.1 is actually just a statement that doesn't say a lot, so we're just leaving it in, open to if we need to remove it, it doesn't say too much. But then the duration piece,
Sorry.
again, based on our original proposal, is the 3-year with year 3 being. And so I just updated that one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fix the letter.
I know. I guess I should see if there's any other questions.
think we're good.
Moving forward, so we can truly move forward in the fashion that we said we're in conversation,
Mhm.
this is how I'm bringing two at the same time. But yours have the most, do you want to take that, and then the next time we meet, which is on the 15th, is you all present, respond, we caucus, and then we get back into, then we can bring everything back versus this piecemeal?
Why don't you let us discuss it in caucus? I think the idea has merit for sure.
Okay.
Can you give us like 5 minutes when we're
Yes,
done?
that's fine.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.